also doing good now. And there's also the 90 now, with all the derivatives coming out here the last 2 years. You probably are aware about this. And also on this side, we are very happy what these bikes are achieving for us and for the brand. But this bike is now a very different story. This is something below 500 cc, and we have never been in there, at least for the last 40 years, you can say. Recalling the R25, 26, 27s from the 60s. The older guys between you might know it. So, and the reason is pretty simple. Talking about our portfolio, and these bikes are in a market which is potentially a world market, about 850,000 bikes. And we are covering quite a nice percentage of these. But in order to grow even more, and you know, we wanted to grow, we have a target of these 200,000 bikes in 2020. You have to approach new markets. And one of these is below 500 cc. Suddenly you're in a market, you talk about not 850,000, but suddenly you're talking about potentially 2 million customers. And so from this point of view, it's a very important bike. And this is mostly, in the beginning, we talk about these emerging markets like Brazil, Mexico, India, China, Russia, Malaysia, and these kind of economies. These economies are really growing, they're maturing, they're catching up very fast, and suddenly you have big middle class with money in the pockets. So, important thing, interesting thing for us. So, and this is why we went into these markets, just for the sheer number of the game. This is the one aspect. The second aspect is talking from the customer side and mentioning these maturing markets. These customers are also, there's new customer classes developing there. Like if you look, for example, in India, and it happens, I know India quite well. In India, the last 10 years before, there was only one class of bikes. There was the 100cc, 125cc bikes commuting. There is no public transportation. People have to commute to go to work long distances. So they can't afford a car probably, so they buy a bike. This was 10 years ago. And they catch up very, very rapidly. Now, if you look at these economies, there is these rural bikes, which is about sheer cheap transportation. You have to put a cow there, and you have to go to church on Sunday. And then there is the commuter guys, which have to go to work. Just the one I just mentioned. But now there is a third group developing, and this is the young urban professionals. I mean, like the IT guys, the young students. These guys want to have a cool bike already. Of course, they can't afford an R1 or a BMW RR or a GS. They would aspire for these, of course, but they can't afford it. And 1000 or 1200 cc is not an issue there. So, but these kind of bikes, this is very interesting for these guys. And many of you now, you guys know, like in Mexico or in Brazil, this is a very interesting class. These bikes are becoming mainstream now. So from these kind of customers, from these emerging markets, this is a very nice offer. But on the other hand, and this is also very interesting to us, which we had not on the radar in the first place, we find that in this satured market, like in Western Europe, let's say Germany, for example, we find all these typical portfolios like what BMW has, the GS, the RR, the RTs, and so on. And these bikes all are super in performance. And we find there is more and more people who are fine with performance, but they probably don't want to have 150 plus horsepower, because it puts you into stress somehow. I always say, if you ride a BMW GS in the Dolomites and somebody passes you, actually you have a problem, because everybody knows the bike is superb, and if you can't ride it superbly, yeah, it's a problem. So you'd rather have it's very easy if you want to decelerate. You go on a different bike. You go on a maybe on a scrambler or on a Bonneville or something like these bikes, where you don't feel the stress. And so this brings me to this bike again, because there is more and more people who want to have a smaller bike. They're happy with this bike and they feel more confident on a bike which does not give you pressure. And that again brings me to my third point. It's my personal point of view on this bike. 4 weeks ago, I think it was 4 weeks ago, we were here in Santa Monica, and we presented the BMW Vision Next 100 motorbike. Some of you might know this thing. Pretty spooky thing, you know, artificial intelligence. Doesn't tip over, there's a gyro in, can do everything. If you make a mistake, the bike saves you. So, like a Mars robot or something. Pretty cool, yeah. And this bike somehow seems to be the other bookend. But in fact, and I tell you, this is my point of view, in fact it's not. This thing is a time machine. You will experience tomorrow. Actually, the funny thing is, and I have to tell you this, but you're not allowed to write this. Because my colleagues from the board of directors of Motorrad, we usually do a test ride before a bike goes to production. We do a serious test ride, and this is like a full day usually, and you do all the things which future customers do. And believe me, these guys are real. Some of them are real hardcore bikers. Even they are more hardcore, die-hard managing guys. Yeah, they are good riders. So, and we rode this thing, and these guys are usually used to ride GSs and double Rs and everything. Yeah, and it's not flower picking riding with these guys. And riding with this bike, 34 horsepower. Oh, okay, let's see how it works. And we went to these twisties in Portugal somewhere, and it was so great to see these guys. I mean, it's different riding. You will experience tomorrow, and I would like to discuss it with you afterwards. You have to do a different route. You ride like you were 16 with the first bike. You have to ride very different. You have to earn every corner. And later on, we went on the Autobahn, on the highway, and this is like, you know, you do 144, and you're like that, you know, like that. And one guy is behind you, and he's doing 146, and he passes you like that. And it's really amazing. You will see this. And in the evening, we went off the bike, and everybody was like, he had a nailed grin in his face. And this is why I say it's a time machine. It recalls totally the days, at least for me and for the other guys, when we were 16 and having our first experiences on the bike. And you don't need, and you will see, you don't need 150 plus horsepower to have fun on the road. It's a really nice, very nice experience. We all forgot about it. Some of you are very young, so probably didn't have this experience, but me and some other guys, we had it. And I would really love to discuss this with you tomorrow after the ride. So that's my personal point of view on this bike. And yeah, Renate said I should say something about the design, because probably this is something yeah, I have to think about. Actually, I think the thing is really self-explaining. It's something we just had this discussion, right? And I think it's a very valid point. the question came up. I mean, this is a very new segment for us. We haven't been in there before, and so it's very obvious. You do not, if you enter a segment where you haven't been in before, which is occupied by the competition, you have to play according to the rules. Quite simple. You cannot invent the rules newly. And this is what we did, and I think we did it the BMW way, how we do it. We brought all the things what we think is important for BMW. BMW stands always for innovation, for technology, and for quality. And all this is, I think, built in. Plus, what we did, we used the BMW Dna. You take the DNA from the big brother, or the big sister, the big sibling, the S1000R, and you put all the cues in the DNA and put it into this small sibling. And this is exactly what you see. And I'm very sure you see somewhere a BMW in it. It's, of course, it's the proportions of the thing. It has the muscle here, and it has a very short and stubby tail. It has these typical cues from the R, from the S1000R, and also from the R. The shields here has the typical front mask. You also find it in a certain way, and of course the color code, a split in the middle. So everything very typical BMW. About the specs of the engine, like the backward mode, this we can. I think this is detailing. We talked to Bora about it anyway, or Jörg, he knows everything about it. So feel free to ask tomorrow whatever you want to know. So I think this is to me this is just the typical BMW Roadster in the segment below 500cc. Nothing more to say. I don't think we need too much of explanation here. So that's from my side. I hand back to Renate, and I look forward to go under these mushrooms here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, there's not much to say anymore. Great to have you with us.